This is Orange Nation Overtime with Steve Infanti and Paulie Sibilia.
Welcome into Orange Nation Overtime, everyone. Alongside Paulie Sibilia, I'm Steve Infanti. We made it to Friday, and of course, the hot topic of discussion today has to do with the men's basketball team. And you and I discussed this on the show yesterday, Paulie, the possibility of a sluggish start, right? 9-day layoff. You just came off a stretch in which you played 4 really intense games against top 20 opponents. This is a lesser opponent at home, 9 o'clock, not many people in the building. And sure enough, that's what we saw, sluggish start.
Yeah, and the problem was it never got unsluggish, and I don't know how much of that was St. Joe's defense and Syracuse just kind of, it looked like they were sleepwalking through it. And we also talked about could they win a game not playing level 5, and they won that. It looked like playing level 3.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think that the more concerning part wasn't so much the sluggish start for me. It was that they seemed to right the ship going into halftime, right? They're up 4, and then you figure, okay, they're going to pull away from here. The fact that in the second half, then after they had a chance to regroup and, okay, you got that out of your system, the fact that it was a sluggish second half, I think was more concerning to me.
Yeah. They also made a lot of bonehead plays. Like, why are we throwing behind the back passes? Why is Luke Fennell taking shots? Like, also, why is he in the game if you don't want him taking shots? And there was a lot of questionable things that happened in that game.
Yeah, the rebounding, I think, was an issue. They were minus 10 on the glass. They gave up 14 offensive rebounds, and we've seen that be a problem here and there to this point, and I think that's something we got to keep our eye on. And the free throw shooting, man. I said on the show yesterday, I said it can't be this bad. And early on, I was like, okay, like William Kyle made a bunch in a row early. They can't consistently make free throws, and that affected the margin of victory, right? I mean, they ended up winning by 8. It should have been probably 14, and as a result, we see the net ranking drop 8 spots today.
Yeah, and it's also weird. It's guys that you would think could make it. Betsy. He was long on all of them.
1 for 6.
Yeah, he was long on all of them. Cayenne still misses. He gets the first one. He then is short on the second, it seems like, every time he gets to the line.
Nate Kings was 1 for 4, and you would think that he's, traditionally he's been a good free throw shooter, just not this year. It is contagious to some degree. When one guy misses, it does feel like it's contagious.
I think my William Kyle take yesterday was brilliant also, that he at least his form, his uniform, it's the same thing every time, and he's putting it softly on the rim, and he was the best shooter of the day.
6 for 9. I mean, you'll take that every time out of him. So much improved from William Kyle. It continues to be an issue, though, for this team. You talked about Tyler Betsy was bad at the free throw line. He was 1 for 6, but he was great everywhere else. And they really needed him because they were looking for a spark. And if you remember, go back to that first half where he had back-to-back threes, including the end one. He missed the free throw, of course, had a chance at a 4-point play. But that stretch where he hit the back-to-back threes, Syracuse was in a little bit of trouble. They're down 7. They'd only scored 7 points in 7 minutes, and then Betsy comes in and breathes some life into the team, and he was great. He had 16 points, and if he makes his free throws, he's over 20.
And we had Coach Autry on Wednesday this week because of the game, and he said we've got to get Tyler Betsy going offensively, because he can be a spark, and he did. It's kind of baffling the guard play, because we thought that was going to be a strength this year, and I don't know. It seems like they're sleepwalking right now. Nate George makes a lot of boneheaded turnovers. He made one in the second half where no one was near him, and he just kind of dropped it out of bounds.
Yeah, he was only credited with 2 turnovers last night, but it felt like more. I agree with you that he didn't have a clean game.
We also saw Adrian Autry's offense work last night in a spurt where everybody got to the rim when they were setting clean picks, and that's how they pulled ahead and got ahead and stayed ahead.
Yeah, a win is a win. You'll take it. But in this age of analytics, you wanted a more impressive, more dominant win than you got. Again, they drop from 73 in the net rankings down to 81. And they're right back at it tomorrow against a tricky Hofstra team. Let's hear from SU basketball beat writer Mike Waters now from Syracuse.com. He was on our Orange Nation radio show today, and we got his thoughts on what went down last night against St. Joe's.
Adrian Autry let us know after the game that a few of the guys had been under the weather. was funny that he said that because during the game, sitting between Brent Axe and Donna DeToto, my two coworkers there, I said, if we find out after the game that Nathan George has had the flu the past few days, I'm not going to be shocked. And then sure enough, Nathan George, after the game, confirmed he's had flu-like symptoms for the last 2 or 3 days. So, yeah, it was just it was a rough game, no energy at all. And this is a team that has to have energy. This is not a team that can just come out and make some threes or run away from people. They've got to play hard. They got to play aggressive defense. They have to attack the basket on offense because there's only a few guys making threes these days. So they're lucky to get away with a win last night.
So, Paulie brought this up. He brought it up on the show yesterday, actually, and he said, can this team not play at a level 5 and still win?
Well,
and we talked about that, and, we saw it last night. That was not a level 5, and, Paulie said it felt like more like a level 3. In a way, is that a positive to come out of last night? That they can see the stark difference now, right? They saw what level 5 did against Tennessee, and they won their biggest game of the season, and then they saw last night what a level 3 is or whatever, and it was a nip-and-tuck game with a middle-of-the-road Atlantic 10 opponent. Is there some positives that can be taken away in that regard that now, Adrian Autry can point to these games and be like, all right, see what the difference is?
Well, that is a true Central New Yorker looking for a silver lining on a gray day.
No, you don't like that?
I suppose, in a way, if you say that, like, Adrian Autry can now point to this game and tell his players, listen, now you see the difference between level 3 and level 5. You had to feel it. We showed it to you. We can show you film. I'm sure some guys are seeing some film today that they're not going to like to look at that shows them not doing their defensive assignments, not being aggressive, not closing out, not boxing out for rebounds, getting out rebounded by 10 by a team like St. Joseph's. I mean, listen, it's okay if you get out rebounded by a handful by Tennessee or 4 by Houston. And, you can stay in those. I mean, you're actually doing pretty well. But in those games on the boards, but to get out rebounded by St. Joe's, no. So yeah, maybe it's in a way, like the coaches can get on these guys and now they have something to show them. But I don't think it's a great thing that the players are figuring out, hey, we can win even at a level 3. It's like, no, you got to bring it. And yeah. I think it'll be a little easier to bring it when they get into ACC competition. Most nights, you won't have these sleepy nights against a non-conference team, but the fact of the matter is they got 4 more of these. They got 4 more non-conference games, and this one on Saturday, they will not win on Saturday against Hofstra if they bring the kind of effort they did last night against St. Joe's.
Yeah, and that was my point.
Yeah.
It's more of a wake-up call last night than it is a good thing that, we won and we didn't play well.
Gotcha.
It's more so, hey, you got to play better because this game shouldn't have been that close. You're right. Tomorrow is a much tougher opponent in Hofstra, a team that just beat Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh. What do you make of this opponent that they're going to see tomorrow evening at 4 o'clock?
They're a tough little team, typical of their coach, Speedy Claxton, former Hofstra star, former NBA player, and now he's got some kids playing for him. The one kid, Cruz Davis, reminds me a lot of Speedy in a way. High volume scorers, gets a lot of their possessions go to him. 20 points per game, ranks in the top 50 in the country in scoring. He's a kid who started his college career 2 years ago at Iona under Rick Pitino and then followed Pitino to St. John's. Didn't get a whole lot of playing time at St. John's last year, so now he's at Hofstra, and he's great. He's scoring a lot. They had a freshman point guard who's also very good. So, those two guys, and they had a couple bigs. William Kyle, again, is going to be going up against a two-headed monster here. They got a kid from Spain, 6'10", about 235, and then they got a kid from Ireland whose name I absolutely love, Silas Sunday. 7 feet tall, 280 pounds, guys. So William Kyle better bring his big boy pants tomorrow. He's going to be going up against some guys with some real girth.
Steve, I'm a big fan of.
I know you are.
Did you know that, Mike? What do you think of Syracuse's offense? Everybody in the chat and our callers are not happy with the way Syracuse plays offense. Are you struggling? Do you think the offense is struggling? Is it ISO ball? What is your take on Syracuse's offense?
Sometimes it's iso ball because sometimes you attack a matchup you like. And if you watch other college basketball teams, they do the same thing. Now, there are some other college basketball teams who have a lot more intricate offenses and run them very, very well. But they often have players who are better offensive type players, and you want to set up those guys for shots. And I think Syracuse's offense too right now is struggling with the absence of Donnie Freeman. They've managed on the boards and they've done quite well on the defensive end without Donnie. But Donnie's going to help this team when he comes back on the offensive end of the floor. He gives them a guy who can get his shot. He makes that iso ball look a little bit better, when you get him the ball in his spot and he's able to shoot over just about anybody who's guarding him. He'll shoot the ball from three. He wasn't shooting it great in the first 4 games this year, but he shot it well last year. You would think once he comes back and knocks off some of the rust, he helps there. He spreads the floor, and also some of that ISO game, which J.J. Starling wanted to get to the basket, looks a little better because the floor has more gaps. He can create more. So I think they'll be okay. But this team's going to live and die on the defensive end. And I think that's why after almost every single game, Adrian Autry comes in and talks about effort and energy and level 5.
What did you make of JJ's game last night? I don't know if he was one of the sick ones last night, but it felt to me like last night was a game you can't get out of a senior. Make him you're on a run, you make a behind the back pass that leads to to them getting going on a 5-0 run. It seemed like he was not quite where he needed to be as a senior right now.
I think he didn't appear to be locked in mentally, whereas a few other guys seemed to be a little sluggish physically. I think JJ, he just wasn't locked in mentally from the game and making some mistakes. And you mentioned that behind the back pass on the break when you'd already kind of started a little bit of run and this was kind of good and maybe you're going to take control here. It would be a great time in the first, and then you're right, led to 5 straight points by St. Joe's and you're back in a battle again. It was like, first of all, behind the back passes on the fast break, boy, you better be accurate with them. And the second one is you don't throw a behind the back pass to a William Kyle. That's the guy you just lob the ball to the rim for and let him go get it, because that's where a big guy wants the ball. Big guy wants the ball up high, not down low, from his waist down. So, so a couple of mistakes on one pass there by JJ, and I'm sure when he sees the film, he's going to be one of those guys who's not going to like to look at part of it, and that's going to be a segment he won't love. But I tell you what, he made a couple of big buckets down the stretch last night when they were still in that dogfight. His patented drives to the basket, put the ball up high off the glass. And, I like that move even more this year than I did last year, because if he misses that, you got a guy this year who can come in and clean that up. And William Kyle, we saw 1 or 2 tip slams and follow dunks from William Kyle again last night. And man, that kid has been so much better than expectations for Syracuse this year. I mean, he's got his second double-double of the season last night. And when nobody else really seemed, willing to go after the basketball on the rebound last night, he got 11 really critical rebounds.
You brought up JJ getting to the basket. When Syracuse went on the run to take the lead and stay ahead, it seemed like everybody was getting to the basket. Did you see something that was being done differently there? Were they screening better? What did you see when they were able to get to the basket in the second half?
I think they finally realized, you know what, guys, we got a lot of matchups here, and our guys can't stop us. Why are we messing around, throwing the ball and around and trying to get a 3 or something? I mean, unless it's Tyler Betsy taking it, go. Just, sometimes it's informative to watch an NBA game. And an NBA game, they don't mess around. If one guy has an advantage, they will go to that guy until the other coach either changes the matchup or takes that guy off the floor. And sometimes college, kids don't do that. College coaches don't emphasize that. And then for a short time last night, all of a sudden, you saw guys going to the basket. And I think it's because they realized, they can't actually guard us, guys, one-on-one. J.J. Starling can get to the basket. Nate Kings can get to the basket. And even Nate George got a couple of drives. So, what wasn't working last night was matchups like, Sadiq White's not a really strong offensive player, and I think he might have been under the weather too. Couldn't tell. His numbers would indicate it. And William Kyle isn't a guy you go to. So, Kyan Anthony was having a terrible night. So, and again, unless it was Tyler Betsy and you try to get him open for a 3, the answer last night was put the ball on the ground and go.
Mike, you look at the problems with this team right now, or the weaknesses. Free throw shooting for sure. That doesn't look like it's going to get much better. That it's going to be a problem all season long. 3-point shooting has been an issue, and rebounding has been an issue. What is fixable? Among those three areas during the season? Red talked last night about, the guards got to help out more on the glass. And is it as simple as that, or do you think rebounding is going to continue to be an issue for this team?
I think we'll watch the rebounds, and I wrote about it today, so I have to, a mea culpa there. I asked if rebounding is an issue. And in the story, it's like, okay, yeah, there's been a couple games where they haven't rebounded particularly well, but their bad rebounding numbers overall are really skewed by the one game against Kansas, where Kansas pounded them. I think they had 20 more rebounds than Syracuse. But when you look at games like Iowa State, Houston, and Tennessee, even though Syracuse was out-rebounded in each of those games, it was by 4, 1, and 5, I think. Maybe, it was by a manageable number. You're okay on the boards if you're only getting beat by Houston by 4. Iowa State by 1. So I think actually they'll be okay on the boards as long as they bring more effort than they did last night. And also, Donnie Freeman's a good rebounder. And when Donnie Freeman comes back, I think they'll still continue to rebound well, and maybe even better, because now when you take him off the court, you got a guy like Sadiq White who's gotten some playing time lately, and probably will play off the bench with more confidence than he might have if he had just been off the bench for the entirety of this first 9 games here. 3-point shooting, I think we've seen some signs that they can get better. I mean, last night they didn't shoot as many threes as they usually do, but they were 6 of 14. That's a good percentage. So, that helps. You got to get from where they were a couple days ago when it was like 28 or 29% from 3 and get it into the low to mid 30s as a team. And I think they can get there again. Donnie Freeman, maybe. Nate Kings is starting to show some signs, now that we're going to see the shooter that he was at, that he was at Oregon State last year when he was 44% 3-point shooter. He's been bopping around down around 25% so far this season, but last night he goes 3 for 5. That's terrific. And so a few other guys just got to make 1 or 2. If you're getting 2 or 3 from Tyler Betsy and Nate Kings, then it's okay if JJ, Nate George, and Kyan Anthony hit just 1 apiece, and you'll get those the numbers you need for made threes, and you'll be okay. You're enough of a threat as a team from the perimeter to create stuff inside. Free throw shooting. Oh, Lord have mercy, fellas. It doesn't get better. They are the worst free throw shooting team in the entire country. Out of 365 Division I teams, as of this morning, they're dead last. And I think you can get a little better. I think, guys like Tyler Betsy and Nate Kings should not be a combined 2 of 10 from the free throw line. Those guys have nice shooting forms. They should make shots.
Again, that was Mike Waters, SU basketball beat writer for Syracuse.com. You see him every week on our Orange Nation TV show. In fact, he appeared on our Orange Nation TV show last night live from the Dome, and he broke the news that Donnie Freeman was not going to play. We didn't think he was going to play. He got official word about 90 minutes prior to tip that Donnie was going to be held out.
I got to the Dome very early yesterday, Steve, though, and saw Donnie Freeman shooting and running through drills that he has not done recently.
And Mike said the same thing, because he was there very early for our Orange Nation TV show, and he said Donnie was out there working out. Looks like he's getting closer to a return, so that's a really good thing. How much of a difference do you see him making when he comes back?
I don't think people realize how big he is on the boards, and I think that's going to be a huge plus for them.
Can't play like they did last night against Hofstra. If you go by Ken Palm, his analytics have it as an 8-point Syracuse win. This is a Hofstra team that just won at Pittsburgh, and I know Pitt might not be great this year, but that's still going on the road and beating an ACC team. They can't play level 3 tomorrow and feel good about their chances.
I tend to think they'll be okay.
Wake-up call last night?
Yeah, and they know that they've beat Pitt.
Right.
And the rust is off after the St. Joe's game, so I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, Hofstra's not going to catch them off guard. Yeah. I mean, they know that this is a pretty good Hofstra team. Now, should they win tomorrow, You're almost guaranteed going 10-3. You're not going to lose any of the next 3 games. I think it's just a matter of how much you win by. And as we talked about on the show yesterday, most people would have signed up for that in a heartbeat. 10-3 with a win over Tennessee. You'll sign up for that, and that's the opportunity they have. They win tomorrow again. They should be fine against the Stonehills and Mercyhursts and Northeasterns of the world moving forward. Mario Sacco came on and hosted the second hour of the radio show today along with you, and you led off that second hour talking football with Nick Carparelli. He's the executive director of Coca-Cola Bowl Season. That's what it's called. He's an SU grad, and he was asked, among other things, for his thoughts on the current state of college football, everything going on right now from the transfer portal to NIL to revenue sharing. Take a listen.
First thing is, I always like to put things in perspective, right? There's a lot of problems in college athletics, not just with the bowl system. I think what's happening to the bowl system is a symptom of a lot of things. But at the same time, we had 82 bowl eligible teams. 12 were selected for the playoff. 70 were given bowl invites, and 3 of them decided it wasn't in their best interest to go, right? So we had 3 other teams that jumped right in, and still not great for the bowl system, not great for college football, but look, college football is unique. Every program is different. Not every team can expect off berth on a regular basis. So we need these bowl opportunities for the majority of football programs, and I'd hate to see a decision by a few institutions tarnish the whole enterprise.
Why are these bowl games so important still to the schools that aren't opting out?
Yeah, well, take our Syracuse Orange, for example, and you can go down a list of a lot of other programs, a lot of ACC programs, Boston College, Wake Forest, down the list, even schools in the Big Ten, whether it's Minnesota or Illinois, or you name them, Northwestern. They need these opportunities. You make a bowl game, it's a reward for a successful season, and every program's definition of success is different based on who you are, based on the season you had prior, and are you building a program or not. You get 15 extra practices. You get an opportunity for the younger guys to play another game. Sometimes it's a glimpse for the next year. It's how you build programs, and it's how you reward kids for a successful season. It's a shame that more people don't appreciate that.
Nick, how is the selection process? How does that happen? Selecting a bowl, you see, this bowl is guaranteed to have an ACC team. Like, how do you sit down and decide that? Is that up to the bowl itself?
It's complicated. Every bowl has two contracts really with 2 conferences. They negotiate in advance the selection order, but there's wiggle room. Usually the bowl will give, rank their preference, their list of teams that they want out of the bowl eligible teams. The teams will weigh in with the conference, and there's a negotiation, and it's complicated. I could probably try to explain it to you all day, and we still wouldn't make sense of it. But somehow it shakes out. Once the selections are announced on Sunday, you have some teams, some bowls that are really happy, and some that are not so happy, and some decide they're going to take their ball and go home.
Well, Notre Dame definitely did take their ball and go home.
Yeah.
Nick, what do you make of the ACC? It seems like they kind of put an emphasis on football a couple of years ago when the conference expansion started happening. But the Clemsons and Florida States kind of haven't lived up to their end of the bargain.
Yeah, it's unfair sometimes to a conference to evaluate them, evaluate the leadership of the conference. In the case of the ACC, Jim Phillips is a good man. I think his heart's in the right place. But ultimately, if the teams don't perform, there's only so much you can say or do. And you had a team like Miami, which is the best team in the league this year. He's advocating for them, and then he's got a partial member that's upset with him for doing that. And I don't know what option he had. I think anybody in his position would have been advocating for Miami to get in. So it was a no-win situation for him. I do think ACC football is solid. I think, they're going to be better or worse from one year to the next, and we'll just see what happens next year.
With the college football, the talk of expansion, maybe going from 12 to 16 teams, how does that, or how would that play into effect with the bowl selection process and everything that goes into that? Do you see your process changing in the future?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think 16 is the likely number. We already went to 12. So if you take 4 more teams out of the bowl system and put them in the CFP, I think it'll have minimal impact. Last year was the year we were really kind of waiting to see. We went from a 14 playoff to a 12-team playoff last year. Everybody was predicting that no one would watch the bowl games, but somehow the opposite was true. Last year we had 2.7 million people watch the average bowl games. Some non-CFP bowl games were up to 8 million, 6.5 million. That was a 14% increase over the previous year and the highest it had been in 5 years. So go figure that out. I don't know the reason for it, but I know people still love watching college football and they love watching bowl games.
We are talking to Nick Carparelli, Executive Director of Coca-Cola Bowl Season. Nick, is the bowl system as it is right now going to be this way still moving forward? Do you think there'll be changes to the bowl system?
Of course there will. It's going to need to evolve, just like literally everything else in college athletics. Now's bowl season, so now's the time people are pointing out the flaws in the bowl system. Just like there are times when people pick apart the flaws in the House settlement and NIL and transfer portal and scheduling and non-conference matchups and everything else that goes on in college athletics. There's not a thing that goes unscathed, I think, at this point. Now just happens to be our time, but at the same time, it is bowl season, and we're going to watch some great games and have a lot of fun. But as you look to next year in the future, of course, it's going to evolve. I'm not sure how and in which way, but we're going to have active conversations with the conferences starting in January to see what the future looks like.
Do you think the bowls system, will some of these sponsors want to start doing like what Syracuse did against in Georgia this year, where they were playing, a game that was sponsored to start the season?
You talking about having the bowl season enter into the preseason?
Like your first week or two of the season, maybe.
Or even just in order to get more bang for their buck, they start doing a bowl game and then an opening season game like they do with the Peach Bowl stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You've actually in recent years seen bowl organizations diversify. Many of them just had a bowl game, and that's all they did. A lot of them are having kickoff games. They're having basketball events. They're hosting other college events during the year, softball tournaments, volleyball tournaments, in addition to getting involved in youth sports in the community. So it's very rare that you have a bowl organization that just runs a bowl game nowadays.
That was Nick Carparelli, always a very insightful guest, and hopefully his alma mater will be back as part of the bowl season in 2026. What do you have for us today? What are we going to learn today, Paul?
You remember the old Rudolph show, Steve?
Of course.
And Santa Claus is coming to town, those old shows that come on around this time of year. Do you know how many months it took to make that half-hour show? It took 100 people every day for how many months to make the Animagic, as it's called?
Well, I wouldn't have guessed months, but since you put it like that, I'm guessing it's a high number. I'm going to say
18 months.
No way.
Of 100 people working
every
to make
day.
That. Yeah, every slight move had to be perfectly matched, and so it took 18 months.
So,
people,
they're like drawing that out, right?
No,
like,
they're little dolls, and they have to move them one by one.
Gotcha. So it's not cartoon. You're talking about the animatronics.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
Yes.
That is impressive. And it it still plays today.
That must have taken level 5 effort.
That is level 5 intensity every day for 18 months. Yes. All of it. All of it into one. All right, we got to go. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Stay safe with this crazy weather we're having. 4:00 tip tomorrow between Syracuse and Hofstra. And then the ladies are back in action against Binghamton Tuesday night. They're 9-1 and on a roll. For Paulie Sibilia, I'm Stephen Fonte. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.